So one of the last tasks you do before hauling your boat out for the winter is to change the engine oil. You don't want to put the boat away with dirty oil. With the acids and the dirt in the oil, it'll eat away at your engine, and eventually it's going to cause it to fail a lot faster. So all we do is we warm the engine up. We bring it up to about 160 degrees. That makes the oil flow a lot better. It's much easier to draw out. We use a small hand pump to do that. You can use a mechanical pump or an electric pump to do the same kind of thing.
Part of laying up a boat is winterizing an inboard diesel engine. In this segment, we'll look at changing the oil. Now, on most sailboats, the engine compartment is a marvel of engineering to get so much equipment in such a confined space. You can interpret this to mean it's really crowded in most engine rooms. Changing the oil in the engine is crucial to the longevity of the engine. The oil should be changed at least once a season or every 100 hours of operation, whichever comes first. There's a couple of procedures that make this exercise go relatively quickly. First, we always keep the container from last year's oil change to capture the oil pumped out of the engine. Second, we always warm the engine to decrease the oil's viscosity and make it easier to pump out. The ideal temperature seems to be between 150 and 160 degrees. Any higher than that and the oil is too hot to handle, especially using this basic brass oil pump. There are many other kinds of pumps, mechanical and electrical driven, but I like how compactly this pump stores away. The other benefit of warming the engine is that if you're changing your oil on a particularly cold day, it does keep your hands warm. The next step is to remove the dipstick and insert the hose of the pump down the dipstick tube to the bottom of the oil pan. It is possible to get under some engines and drain the oil directly from the pan, but our engine bilge is a little tight and I'm concerned about spilling a liter of dirty oil into our bilge. Before starting to pump, open up the fuel cap to let the air into the system and make pumping a little bit easier. Keep absorbent shop towels at the ready. It's not so much if you're going to spill some oil, but when. Slow and steady will get most of the old oil out. You'll never get it all out, and that begs the question, why change the oil in the fall when the boat is going to be laid up for the winter? Why not wait until spring? Well, the simple answer is that the acids and contaminants that the oil has been cleaning out of the engine will sit on the internal parts of the engine and will, over time, contribute to an early death of your engine. So once you have most of the oil out, and you can hear the sucking sound, remove the oil filter. By waiting till towards the end of the process, there'll be less oil in the filter and less chance of spillage. Position a tray under the filter to catch any drips. The filter is on hand tight, so you don't need a filter tool. But there are a lot of threads on an oil filter, so keep turning until you feel it release. Transfer the oil from the filter into the container you're using for the used oil. Now you can install the new filter. Be sure to apply a skim of oil to the rubber gasket to ensure a tight seal and avoid leaks. The time it takes to replace the oil filter should be sufficient time to allow any oil still in the engine to make its way to the sump. Give the oil pump a few more draws to make sure you've got all of the old oil out. Now it's time to put fresh oil into the engine. You can see that our oil-fueled cap is very close to the cockpit sole, so we've used several methods to put oil into the engine. And a few years ago, I started using these sport water bottles for various fluids that we have to monitor on the boat: transmission fluid, engine coolant, and of course the engine oil. If you're changing oil in your home port, where you have access to various transfer hoses and funnels, you may choose a different way. But since we're cruising sailors and have to be self-sufficient, I choose to add 6 or 7 containers full of clean oil. Take care to make sure the cap is on properly and use a shop towel to capture or wipe away any drips. One benefit of using last year's fresh oil container to capture your old oil is it shows you how much oil you have to replace. In our case, it's about 4.5 quarts or 4.25 liters. Slowly and surely, the oil is added. And when I have 6 containers in, I check the oil level. You can see here the oil is just under the max fill mark. It's important to note that there's no oil in the filter yet because we haven't turned over the engine to get oil up to the filter. Be careful not to overfill the oil. On some engines, having too much oil is as damaging as not having enough. Now it's time to turn the engine over and watch the oil pressure gauge to make sure that we have done a complete job. You can see here that the oil pressure is at 50 psi, which is the engine manufacturer's recommendation. I'm not worried about bringing the engine up to operating temperature. I'll do that at the end of the process. And now it's time to recheck the oil level. So you can see the level is just above the add oil mark. And on Sojourn, that is one oil bottle, one of my sport bottles. And I add that, check the level, and then we clean up our tools and the old oil. Be sure to recycle the used oil in your marina or your yacht club's waste oil container. Never put it into regular garbage containers. An oil change is one of the easiest and least expensive ways to extend the life of your engine and to improve your performance under power. Enjoy winterizing your boat. It gives you the opportunity to complete those tasks that you just didn't get around to because you were too busy enjoying your boat all summer. On behalf of Canadian Yachting Magazine and the Weather Network, I'm Rob MacLeod of Informed Boater. Happy boating!